Welcome to Crime Most French, a fortnightly podcast covering intriguing cases carried out on French soil. Researched and narrated by Cedric and rudely interrupted by me, Melanie. We're the true crime podcast on the Alliance. Crack open le vin and let the mayhem commence.
This is episode 81, The Robbery of the Century. On the weekend of the 17th and 18th of July 1976, a gang robs the Societe Generale's bank's vault in what would become known as the robbery of the century.
That must have been hot and sticky work, given the fact it was in 76 and in the summer and in Nice. That would have been super, super steamy.
Yes. I remember being in my pants when I was a kid and spending most of it in the swimming pool.
Yeah, ditto.
After the weekend of the 17th and 18th of July 1976, employees of the Societe Generale in Nice discovered that the bank's vault has been emptied. 371 out of 4,000 safes have been opened and emptied of their contents.
So these will presumably be the little drawers behind the locked
Yeah, they had a
doors.
mix of these small drawers, but also actually proper safes, like big cupboard-sized things. They
That must have been a
combination.
massive room.
Yeah. Well, I've seen the vault of the... What was it? It wasn't Societe Generale. It was one of the big banks where I was working in Paris. When I was working for a different company, their HQ was in an ex-bank.
Oh, right.
And I visited the vault, and
Mm-hmm.
the door was the size of our house. It was absolutely gigantic.
Wow.
And the vault was so big. It was the size of the whole size of the block.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you can easily put 4,000 safes in there. That's no problem. It's the whole basement that was the vault.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it was in a really flash arrondissement as well.
Yeah, it was right in the center. Yeah. Anyway, in total, about 50 million francs of the time, which is about 40 million euros today.
Not bad.
Yeah, were stolen in a daring robbery that had never happened before.
Mm.
It all starts with Albert Spaggiari.
It always seems to be typical when we do cases from kind of like right down in Paca and down in the Med. We always come across a whole heap of Italian-sounding names.
It's definitely either Italian or Corsican or Sardinian or one of those, yes. Spaggiari, definitively with two Gs.
Mm.
Anyway, he's a professional photographer working sometimes for the mairie in Nice. He lives in an isolated house in the countryside inland over Nice, in the hills.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a quiet life. And it's way too quiet for him. He wants more excitement.
Well, he has gone to Nice, for goodness sake. I mean, that's where the
Old
great
people
and
go
good
to die,
of Paris all retired to.
He reads a lot of thrillers and police books and stuff
Oh, right, okay.
in his spare time. One in particular sparked his interest fairly recently. It's called Ode to the Sewers. That's my translation. There's no English translation, I think. Okay. It's written by Robert Pollock. It describes a bank robbery where access to the safe was done through the sewers.
Ah, right, okay.
And the story piques his interest because a friend of his, who's also a municipal councillor in Nice, and an employee of Societe Generale, told him that the bank's vault had no alarm because it was judged that the 1.8 meter reinforced concrete walls would be enough to stop anybody from getting into the safe.
Right.
So they decided, what's the point of an alarm system if the walls are nearly 2 meters of concrete?
No such thing as belt and braces, obviously, in this guy's mind.
So Spaggiari starts speculating, what if he broke into the bank vault?
Mm.
No alarm would give him all the time he needs to empty the safes. And what if he went through the sewers? So he starts thinking about that plan for a while.
So this is kind of like a cross between Ocean's 11 and Andy Dufresne from The Shawshank.
Yeah, I guess so, except that they were breaking in instead of breaking out.
Yes.
His first step is to rent a safe in the vault because he wanted to see what it looked like.
Okay, yeah. So he's doing his recce. He's doing the research first.
Yes. So in his small safe, he puts an alarm clock and it sets the ringing to the middle of the night.
Right.
The idea is to test whether there are acoustic or seismic sensors.
Right.
Like his friend said there wasn't. So he leaves it and nothing happens. So he assumes that the reason why nothing happened is because nobody ever heard the ringing or felt the vibration of the alarm clock.
Alarm clock.
No, the old style.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
So-
Enough to awaken the dead.
Yeah, but that would be picked up by seismic sensors.
Oh, totally,
That's
yeah.
his assumption anyway.
Yes.
So he's done his test and he's happy that, yes, that's true, there's no alarm in that bank.
I wouldn't say it's the most rigorous of scientific
It's
research.
a clever idea.
But yeah, it's a good idea.
So then he starts exploring the city sewers. He enters a covered tunnel of a local river that he knows connects to the sewers but 2 kilometers in.
Okay.
And that's fairly common. In Paris, it's the same thing. The Sèvres, for example, Paris has 2 rivers, not one. You know the Seine,
Yes.
but there's also the Sèvres that
Yes.
most people don't know about, which has become part of the sewers. So if you look at photos from the early 20th century, you can still see the Sèvres in the streets. And slowly it gets covered with concrete, and then it completely disappears, and nobody now knows where it is. You can guess because there are streets that mention it,
Uh-huh.
but apart from that, nobody knows. Most people who live in Paris have no idea that there's a second river, but it's been absorbed by the sewers.
Isn't there an absolutely massive lake underneath?
Yes, under Opera.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you can go in a boat.
Yeah, it's absolutely gigantic.
Mm.
It's 2 days reserve for water for Paris.
Okay.
So it's 2 days water for 2 million people, roughly. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
But that's separate.
Yeah, that's nothing to do
That's
with
not
this
sewers.
story, and that's
No.
just a piece
Yeah.
of right, crazy trivia I have in my head.
Yeah, so he enters via one of those nearly covered rivers, and he walks in because he knows at some point it connects to the sewers.
Mm-hmm.
After spending several nights exploring the tunnels, he decides that it must be possible to dig a tunnel from one of the sewers tunnels
Right.
into the bank vault.
You'd have to kind of like know exactly where it is.
Yes, but if it is like in Paris, in the sewers, you have street names above,
Yes.
inside the sewers.
You
So you know
do.
exactly where you
Yes.
are.
Essentially, it's just a road map, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
just underneath. It's
Yeah, it tells you you're
subterranean.
under street
Mhm.
blah blah or under
Yeah.
what monument or something like that. So assuming it's the same in Nice, and that would make sense, then you know exactly where you are.
It's like the upside down Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in fact, the tunnel that they dig goes straight under one of the access points for the sewers as well, in front of the bank. But they don't go in that way because that would be too obvious, so they go
Yes.
in via that river. Anyway. So he's ready for part 2 of his plan now. He knows the bank has no alarms. He knows that he can get to something close to the bank vault walls from the sewers.
Mm.
So now the question is, how do you dig that tunnel? So he builds a team. And for that, he contacts 2 guys, one called Alain Bournin and the other one, Francis Pellegrin, who are 2 members of the local mafia.
Of course.
We're in Nice. There's a lot of mafia.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of mafioso types down there, yeah.
It doesn't take long to build a team of about 15 people.
So he's Ocean's 15.
Yeah, he is Ocean's 15 years. That's not a small team, but
No.
they need quite a lot of knowledge about lots of things, and they decide that, okay, they need the number of people they need. So
Do they have a little Chinese guy who can hide in a tiny little box?
no, because they don't attack it from inside, they attack it from outside.
Yes.
That's different from Ocean's
Totally,
11.
yes. And it's not a film.
And it's not a film, yes.
Mm.
The digging starts on the 7th of May 1976. The
7th of May, it's quite a long time. That's a bit of guts of a month, isn't it?
It's in fact 3 months.
3? Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes they carry up to 50 kilos of equipment each down into the sewers to reach the digging site.
Oh, my God, in that heat, it must have been unbearable.
So in total, they dig 8 meters in 3 months through dirt, stone and rocks. And the work is quite hard. Sometimes it takes them several nights to go through a single rock because it's hard. But they do everything by hand. They don't use machines because machines would be too noisy and it would be picked up. So they dig everything by hand. That's why it takes so long.
Wow. Well, I guess the money wasn't really going anywhere, was it?
Yes. In the team, they have guys who have actually worked in mining and stuff. So their tunnels are reinforced. They have electricity, they have light, and the floor is even covered in carpet.
Oh, the luxury.
Well, there was a reason for it. It would make less noise and be less messy.
Yes, that's true.
So it is a good tunnel.
Mm. Yeah, I could just imagine all the kind of like the rubble and stuff, kind of like from the hole in the street. So it's obvious.
Yes. They have a setback on the 9th of July when the President of the Republic decides to visit Nice.
So security's
yes, there are so many
governmental.
cops around that Spaggiari has to stop digging for a few days to avoid taking the risk of being discovered.
Mm-hmm.
So they completely stop. But not only delays the completion of the tunnel shortly before the weekend deadline, because they had decided they would get into the vault on that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But it also created the possibility that secret services would decide to check the sewers, which they sometimes did.
Oh, yes, of course.
And they would discover the tunnel.
Mm.
So they were very clenched when the president was there. But for some reason, the security services decided not to check the sewers.
Phew.
So nobody found what they were doing. Finally, on the 16th of July 1976, they reached the outer wall of the vault. What they need to do now is go through 1.8 meters of reinforced concrete.
Only?
Yes, so they use thermic lances to melt the concrete. You know, the big gas bottle things.
Yes.
So they actually melt the concrete.
I mean, it must have stank down there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it must have stank of all of the sewers, all of the equipment, the gas, and them. They must have stank.
Yeah, yes. In addition to the gas bottle and digging equipment, they bring crowbars, various sizes, including huge industrial ones.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring an industrial jack.
Okay.
The jack is needed because once they get through the wall, they need to push a safe that is behind the wall.
Oh, right, yes, of course, because they're not necessarily just going to come popping out through
It's not through the
naked
door.
wall.
So all the walls are covered in stuff. So they need to push the safe that's behind the wall.
Yeah.
And for that, they need a big jack.
Yeah.
So that's why they bring an industrial jack. At 9:30 p.m., the last bit of wall standing falls.
Uh-huh.
And they push the safe with the jack. And they're in. The whole team camps in the vault the whole weekend. Because it takes time to open 371 safes.
Yeah.
Some of them are really tough, and some of them even resist blowtorches and stuff, so they give up on some of them. They're just too tough.
Okay.
In addition to the contents of the vault and the safes, they steal gold bars because that bank happened to be the bank reserve for the Societe Generale.
Oh, no.
So they had tons of gold.
Uh-oh. That's heavy, though.
Yes.
I mean, I guess if you've got a weekend.
Yes. And they steal cash that was supposed to go to ATMs in town.
Right. And presumably they would melt down the gold once they've got it out.
Yeah, presumably, yes. Because
not in situ, obviously.
Yes.
It's not, although I have seen that done in Mission Impossible. But
but that's Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
So overall, as we mentioned before, it's about 40 million euros.
40 million?
Yes.
Oh, well, okay.
40 million euros today.
In my head, I had 400 million.
No,
then
it's
I had
40
that.
million.
Yeah.
But that's still quite a lot.
Yes. Still, it's ill-gotten gains. It's not like they won it on the lottery.
Spaggiari is so sure of his plan that on the Saturday night, on the 16th, he leaves the team to work and he goes for dinner in a restaurant nearby with his girlfriend.
Ballsy.
He comes back to the vault a few hours later, apparently with wine and pâté to share with the team, to celebrate.
That's peak French cliché, that is. Was he wearing a beret and a béton striped shirt at the same time?
It rains a lot that weekend.
Must have been thundery.
Yeah, probably. And the sewer levels are rising fast.
Eek.
So in the middle of the night, on Sunday morning, Spaggiari becomes very worried that the rising water would trap them in the safe.
All the money would be out the safe, but they'd be trapped in it.
Yes. So he orders evacuation, well ahead of their plan, because they had decided to work until Monday morning before the bank opens again.
That's, once again, that's an incredibly ballsy move, working all the way up to...
But that is why they only opened 371 safes. They had to leave.
Yeah.
But halfway through the time they had decided to stay.
And they only got a piffling 40 million. Ugh.
Yes. So it takes them many round trips to move all that stuff.
Yeah, especially if it's in bullion.
Yes. And by the time they finish, they're up to their neck in sewer water in the tunnels.
So it is.
So that was time to get out.
It is definitely like Andy crawling through the pipe in
At
the
that point,
Shawshank
yes.
Redemption.
Yeah, because some of the members of the team were interviewed later, and they said that they were essentially walking in crap.
I hope nobody's eating while they're listening to this. Gross.
Before they leave the vault, they wipe all prints.
Mm-hmm.
The only clue they leave for the cops is a message they write in chalk on the wall that says no weapons, no violence, and no hate.
Right, okay. Why? They're just
but
trying to mess
the
with the
cops
cops.
don't know. What they do is everybody writes on the letters, so they all write the same message over and over again on the same thing. So
okay, so you can't actually do
you can't match to somebody's writing.
A writing comparison thing.
Yes.
Okay. Feels very Charles Manson, Helter Skelter kind of just writing something just to annoy the police.
Yes. They split the money the next day in an isolated villa on the hills.
Right. The crap-covered gold bars.
Everything. Because there will be jewelry, there will be gold, there will be money. There will be loads of things that they share.
Tax-free money, but it's covered in crap.
Yeah. As the only clue the cops find when they go into the vault is the writing, they decide that it wasn't the robbery wasn't done by the usual crowd because mafia gangsters don't spend time writing messages on walls, especially cryptic ones. They don't care. So they think that they have somebody who's more ideologic, and maybe they did it for ideology or something. They're not too sure what's going on, but
an anti-capitalist statement.
Yes, they decide early on that it's not the local mafia, it's not the local gangsters, it's somebody else. Apart from that, the inquiry goes absolutely nowhere.
Can I give a quick glimpse behind our podcast? I was quite fascinated by the fact, because I know a little bit about the story, how they'd actually, when they arrived in the bank on Monday morning, it took a long time to actually get into the safe because they'd concreted the safe door up.
Did they? Oh, I see. I didn't see that.
And they had to go through the wall. And it wasn't until sometime in the kind of like the afternoon until they actually broke into their own safe. So that's why Spaghieri was quite happy to work all the way up to the Monday as close as he could, because he knew that he'd taken care of the one entrance.
Oh, I see. Okay. There's no more evidence, so the team obviously had done a good job of wiping prints and everything like that.
I mean,
so
I should say they had all that time.
They had time, except that they didn't in the end. They had to leave early.
Well,
because
yes,
of the flooding.
they did. If he hadn't gone swanning off to have dinner, there would have been an extra pair of hands.
Yeah,
and if they hadn't have stopped to have their pâté and wine.
Yes. At some point, the gendarmerie starts connecting dots a bit. They had been alerted a few months earlier by CI that a group was preparing a big operation in Nice. But at the time, they didn't know what it could be and who it was.
That's the thing when you involve lots of people. It's just impossible to keep anything a secret.
Yeah. So at that point, they decide to go back to the tip and try to follow what it said. So they descend on a villa in the countryside around Nice, where they find a bunch of men nearby. And they arrest them because they think that, okay, if the CI was right, then these guys must be involved. But they can't keep them because they have no evidence of anything.
Oh, right. See, they didn't do what Ronnie Cray and that heist. Do you know the story of that heist?
No.
They played Monopoly.
With real money?
With the real money. And their fingerprints were all over the board.
No.
Morons.
Yes, no, they didn't do that.
Okay.
Among those that were arrested, there was Daniel Michelucci and Gérard Vigier, who the gendarmes knew already as members of the Marseille underground.
Right.
So now they're starting to think, known gangsters seem to be somehow connected to something that the CIA said.
Because, I mean, I think the thing is that a lot of the cops take whatever their CI says with a bit of a grain of salt.
But that's what they did. Yeah,
that's criminals.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they didn't act on it.
Yes.
But then when they started thinking about what the CIA has said months earlier, they realized that, okay, the CIA might have known something and whatever he said might have been right.
Yeah, he might have known a bit more than, I hear there's a big gang going to do something in Nice, which is a bit nebulous. I mean...
Yeah. So the reason why gendarmes know these two guys is because they had been arrested a few months earlier because they were loading a large number of heavy chisels, industrial chisels, into a car.
Right. Surely that's not a crime.
Well, that's the kind of chisels you use to go through concrete.
Okay.
So when they
still
were spotted...
isn't a crime.
It's not a crime, but when they were spotted, the gendarme said, "Yeah, what are you doing?" So they arrested them and questioned them at the time. But they had to let them go.
Well, and quite right too. If I was there, the only thing they would hear from me is talk to my lawyer.
It was super suspicious to load these industrial things into a car. Into a van or into a lorry, maybe. Into a car, somebody's car. No. That was very weird.
No, it might be weird. Still nothing to do with them.
Well, they let them go.
I mean, I wouldn't have tipped my hat. I would have just been following them and watching them what the hell they were up to.
Yes. Although the gendarme dropped the ball many times on this story. Later on, after the robbery, they compared the serial numbers and they realized they were from the same batch.
Of course.
So, in fact, months earlier, they had a few of the people involved in the robbery. But
if they just kind of
do anything about
held back,
yes,
rather than just jumping the gun,
yes,
they showed their hand way too early.
Yeah. The gendarmes searched the house and they discover muddy boots and lots of guns. That mud, when they analyze it, they discover it comes from the tunnel near the bank.
It's filled with people from Nice's poo.
Well, that too as well. Yeah. Most likely, yes, but that doesn't tell you a location, whereas the mud will tell you where it comes from.
They've just been tramping around in the sewers.
Yeah. And at that point, they realized that they could have folded the plan if they had done their work properly. But they didn't. Quelle
surprise. I guess hindsight's, it's easy for us to sit here with hindsight, but, You
should always go to the end of what you start, and that's why Minesweeper is a very good thing to learn.
Oh, God. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
It forces you to think in terms of how far you can go at every step, and that's really what you should do. But anyway, Pellerin and Borna, who helps Spaggiari assemble the team, get caught as they are trying to negotiate the sale of gold bars to another bank through a third party.
God.
They're a bit dumb.
Yes.
Because they try to sell the gold bars as they are with the serial numbers to a bank who has access to registers of serial numbers.
Oh, good Lord. I mean, come on, I was laughing at the Monopoly money. That's as equally as bad.
Oh, that's even worse. At least the Monopoly money, you don't expect it to be found because you're playing away. You're gone already.
They took the money.
Yeah, but I mean, you're gone already. The thing is done and you don't expect the side to be caught.
They didn't wipe down the board.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But in this case, that's really stupid to go back to another bank with the gold bars.
Yeah.
Of course, the bank is going to check the serial numbers on the gold bars.
I mean, what kind of bank takes hot... I'll just
unknown
take
gold,
this completely unknown, suddenly appeared on the market from nowhere gold.
Exactly. That is so dumb, but that's what they did. So they confessed very quickly. And they charged Spaggiari for being the brain of the operation. So they turned against him. The cops aren't sure it's true because Spaggiari is not known from their services. He hasn't been in trouble with the law before.
No, he just went big first time out.
Well, yeah, they don't understand how a nobody who's never been in trouble would be the brain behind an operation that involves local gangsters. That's not usual and that's weird.
That is very true because I wouldn't know,
How to contact gangsters.
I have the same level of, I don't know. We could have gangsters in the village.
Yes.
I would never know. That's the thing about gangsters. They're not, in the yellow pages. Making myself.
But
a
also,
little bit,
gangsters wouldn't trust somebody they don't know. So they don't know if that's really true, because it is very unusual.
He's just been much better not getting caught before. That's our thought.
Yeah, but just in case Spaghetti goes on the run, first he goes to the US,
right,
to hide, but he gets bored. He wants the recognition for what he's done.
Seems to have ADHD. He gets bored very easily.
Yeah. So that's his first mistake, because in Washington he contacts the CIA and offers his services. For example, to break into embassies.
Oh my God.
And as credentials, he explains what he's done in the bank in Nice.
No, that's not how the CIA work.
Yeah. So, of course, the first thing the CIA does is alert the French services via telex. For those who don't know what telex is, it's like fax, but older.
Yeah.
But nothing comes of it. They don't answer, they don't do anything with it.
Wow, the French police really are just so bad sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, presumably would that not have been Interpol they would have connected?
In 76, I don't think Interpol existed.
Oh, is Interpol that new?
Yeah, it's quite recent.
No,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the EU, so it's not something that's been there for a long time. So no, I don't think it would have existed, or if it existed, it would have been nothing. Spaghetti can't stay in hiding because it's just too bored. So he goes back to France, and he starts working for the mairie in Nice, again, as a photographer.
So hang on a minute,
Like nothing happened.
Not only did he go back to the country,
He went back to the town.
he actually went back to the city.
Yeah.
Man, this guy is dumb.
Yep. So as part of his work for the mairie in Nice, he's sent to Japan for a photo shoot.
Jesus.
No idea what about, but
and
anyway.
he's even working for the government.
Yes.
God's sake.
But at that point, the Rosers are starting to catch up, and they wait for him when he lands back, and they arrest him on the 27th of October 1976.
I'll tell you what, he gets bored very easily.
Oh, yeah.
He must have been in the States less than a fortnight, for God's sake.
For a couple of months, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
But that was too much for him. He was just bored to death, so he had to come back. So
Sorry, America, your country is boring.
Yeah. According to that guy, yes. The gendarmes search his house, and they find, using metal detectors, in a chicken coop, under straw, war weapons. So we're talking machine guns, explosives, and grenades.
Wow.
And about 6 million lira, Italy,
at
the time. The euro didn't exist. Which is kind of weird for somebody who's never been in trouble with the law. When he's interrogated, Spaghetti first denies the facts, but eventually accepts to confess only if somebody important comes and talks to him.
Oh, he's got a big ego on.
Yes, he wants to confess to somebody who's not just a cop.
I mean, does he want a press conference at the same time with lots of cameras
going
off and the flashes? And
Yeah. So it's the deputy director of the police, a guy called Honoré Gévaudan, that comes and collects his confession.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy, though, because Spaghetti is still dragging his feet. So to make him talk, Gévaudan played on Spaghetti's anti-communist convictions by telling him that the robbery had a terrible impact on the government. The government was a right-wing government at the time, and its ministers. And as a result, it could increase the chances of the left gaining power in the next elections, which were in 1981. And because he was a right-wing fascist, he decides to talk. So he gives lots of details that convinced the cop that he was indeed involved in the robbery.
Right.
He never gives the name of his accomplices. And he explains that the robbery was in fact to get money so that he could fund far-right groups in Italy to counterattack the far left.
Right.
So that's what his explanation is for stealing the money. Not for me. It's not because I want to get lots of money and not work and all that. It's because I want to finance far-right groups against the far left in Italy.
So, heaven forfend that he'd actually just be a greedy bastard. He's got ideology.
Yes.
He's got dogma.
Rotten ideology, but ideology, yes.
Bullshit.
So he spends 5 months in jail awaiting trial.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells his lawyer one day that he's planning to escape. Why would you do that? I don't know, but he did.
Yeah, that seems
It's dumb, again.
Yeah, once again, showing your hand way too soon.
Yeah. Also, why would you tell your lawyer you want to escape? Because surely your lawyer would be bound to tell the cops. But anyway, his lawyer tries to convince him not to do that because it's not a good idea. But Spaggiari has made up his mind, he's going to do it. So he gets the help of a few friends from his time in Indochina. He was a paratrooper in Indochina in his 50s during the War of Independence.
Oh, and that's before the Americans come in?
Yes.
Vietnam.
Yes, that was 54. Well, Dien Bien Phu, which is one of the last battles, was 54.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been 50 to 54, something like that. So he was a paratrooper in Indochina. He was wounded several times as well, I think. They decide to break him out of jail the easiest way possible. And they decide to do that when he talks to a judge, because he's out of prison at that point.
Uh-huh.
So his co-conspirator transmits him a note that shows a man jumping from the window and going down the wall using the gutter.
Now, you see, this is just giving me Ted Bundy flashbacks, because that's how he escaped.
Was it?
Yeah, well, they let him. He wasn't seeing the judge at the time, but he was in the law library.
Oh, okay, yes.
Out with the prison, yeah, and he just basically hopped out the window and scarpered, and he ended up killing a lot more people in Florida.
Okay. Maybe that's where they got the inspiration, or maybe the other way around. I don't know which one was first, because that was 1977.
Yeah, that was pre-Bundy.
Okay, so maybe Bundy heard about it.
Could be.
So on the 10th of March 1977, they put their plan in action. At 3 p.m., Spaggiari asked the judge to make his escort leave the room, because he's talking to the judge, because he has revelations about high-ranking local politicians and officials that he doesn't want anybody to hear apart from the judge.
He's good at flanneling the bullshit, isn't he?
Yes. So the judge accepts and makes the cops leave the room. Spaggiari makes 3 diagrams on a sheet of paper, and they're very messy and very unclear, but they're supposed to show the sewer tunnels and where they dug their tunnels to the bank vault.
Uh-huh.
That's really to prove that he was the guy doing it.
Yeah, I mean, because presumably the police already knew.
They already know where the tunnels are.
Yeah,
that's not the point.
Yeah.
But they want to know that he knows as well.
Exactly.
Because that means that he's been there. He was part of the team.
Exactly, yeah.
So the judge doesn't understand the diagrams, so he asks for more explanations. Spaggiari gets up, walks around the desk to come closer to the judge and point on the paper and those things.
It's almost like it's been done on purpose.
Yes, and as he walks in front of the window, he jumps on the ledge outside the window, and from there he jumps 2 stories at 7 meters onto the roof of a car in the street.
Thud.
That sounds not planned, or not very well planned, because jumping 7 meters and landing on the roof of a car, that's quite hard.
Yeah, he's not a cat.
Yeah. It's not like in American films where you always jump and there's always a dumpster full of cardboard. That's actually metal. That's a car. And that's a 70s car, so it would have been possibly steel, not even aluminium.
Yes.
So that would have hurt.
The roof wouldn't have dented, but you would have been about a foot shorter. Yeah.
So one of his accomplices is waiting nearby on a motorbike, and they escape. Later on, he sends 5,000 francs to the owner of the car for the roof damages.
Oh, well, that's...
And he signs it Albert Mandrino. Italian name, random Italian name.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, he didn't want the guy to pay for the repairs of his roof, because at the time...
Because he's a good guy.
He's a good guy. Also, insurance wasn't compulsory in the 70s, so there was a chance that the guy had no insurance and would have had to pay for the repairs. So he was a good guy.
What a guy.
Yeah,
what a guy.
The motorbike brings him to an underground car park, less than a kilometer away from the tribunal.
Mm-hmm.
He then hides in a posh flat near the port of Nice with 2 accomplices.
Mm-hmm.
And he then travels to Paris. Nobody knows to this day who else helped him, because he never said. Several politicians accuse each other of facilitating his escape.
Of course.
But there's no hard proof. So nobody knows really who was involved and how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes on the run again.
Right. Let's see if he lasts longer than kind of like 3 minutes.
It lasts 12 years this time.
Wow.
So, yes, he tries harder.
Yeah.
So he travels often during under the name Romain Clément, especially to Argentina and Brazil.
No wonder if he met up with Ronnie Biggs and the swapped
That's
stories.
not impossible. He buys a large villa in Brazil as well.
Does he get hippos?
No.
No, it's
No,
Argentina.
he's not Escobar. No. Spaghetti is paranoid of being discovered.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in movies, he gets cosmetic surgery in Argentina to not look like he used to.
Yeah, eye roll.
Yes. He hides in Spain, Chile, and Italy,
Mm-hmm.
and he comes back to Paris once in a while, but he's bored again.
For God's sake.
So he writes a book
What?
called The Paradise Sewers in 1978 when he's in Argentina.
He gets bored so easily. I mean, come on.
Yes, he even gets married to an Italian admirer in 1979.
Okay.
And to pass the time, he plays with the authorities. So he sends them selfies from his hiding places. The press absolutely loves that because, of course, it's an interesting story. It's fun.
Yeah, and it's making the authorities look dumb.
Yes. In one of the famous photos, he's dressed as Santa. In 1981, he goes to Rome for an operation due to kidney cancer.
All right, okay.
And as soon as he's out of the hospital, he flees to Bolivia because he's worried that under anesthetics he might have talked. He might have said things he shouldn't
Okay,
have.
yes. I'm Spaghetti.
Yeah, for example.
Mm-hmm.
In 1983, he gives a long-filmed interview from his flat in Madrid, because he also goes to Spain, where he tells the story of the robbery and gives lots of details of the operation. Because what's the point of doing it if you don't get credit for it?
Yeah.
He writes another book and gives interviews to the French newspapers and TV literary shows.
I mean, really, he's just... I mean, he's Nelson Muntz at that point, isn't he?
He's an idiot. Yeah.
I'm free, you can't get me.
Yeah. On the 23rd of October 1979, Spaghetti is sentenced to life in prison in absentia.
Mm-hmm.
5 accomplices, Pellerin, Bourna, Poggi, and Michelucci and Vigier, are tried at the same time.
Okay.
And they are sentenced to 8 years in prison.
That seems like a big disparity between 8 years and life.
He was the brain, he organized everything, so they decided and also he fled.
And he's making them look like chimps.
There's probably some of that too. But strangely, a lot of the members of the team are never even known. We still don't know who the 15 members are.
Okay.
We know 5, 6,
Mm-hmm.
but that leaves 9 that we have absolutely no clue who they are. And they were never caught, we just don't know.
Mm.
So they got away with it.
There is honour amongst those bunch of thieves, obviously.
Yeah. So by that point, Spaghetti is still on the run. And in 2000, the CIA and the NSA declassified documents that show that Spaghetti had close relationships with Pinochet's regime.
Who'd have thought he would have hung out with scumbags?
Yeah, especially with the agents that are linked to the murder of Allende in 1973 and Letelier in 1976.
Dearie me.
So, yes, he seems to be fairly closely linked to Chilean scumbags.
Yeah.
Eventually, he runs out of money.
I don't know.
And his antics start boring people. So, he continues giving interviews to the press and stuff to have people talk about him, but people are just not interested.
He is very much the French Ronnie Biggs.
Mm-hmm. He dies on the 9th of June 1989 in northern Italy.
So he never goes back to jail.
No. He dies at 56 from cancer of the throat. His new wife, at the time, takes his body, put it in a camper van, and drives from Italy to his mum's house in France.
Right, okay.
She dumps the body outside the house.
Ooh, that camper van must have been a bit fragrant.
Yeah, so that his mum can bury him, and she does on the 14th of June. He's buried in the village where he was born.
Right.
And
I mean, he must have been... I don't even want to think about that, because that would take quite a while in a camper van.
No, it takes a few hours. Because he was living in northern Italy, so...
Right, northern Italy.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Northern Italy to Nice. Nice is close to the border.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Nice is kind of like, what, about half an hour from the border?
It's probably 2 hours from the border, maybe. It's a bit more than that.
Or maybe I'm thinking of Antibes, that's probably where I'm thinking.
Well, Cannes and Antibes are closer, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's not far. So if I think they weren't at the French border, they were a bit more east than that. But it's a matter of hours, so it's not really a big problem.
But it wasn't like he was liquefied by the time she got there.
Yeah. So that's the end of his story.
Mm-hmm.
But it needs to be taken with a grain of salt. Because there are still a whole bunch of uncertainties about everything that happened. Some members of the team say that Spaghieri was no more than the guy who thought of the idea, but really didn't have any more involvement than that.
Right, okay.
And there's a guy in particular who was arrested and went to jail who claims to be the brain of the operation. And he has talked to the police and the press and stuff and given a lot of details that even Spaghieri didn't give. That could show that, in fact, it was him that was organizing everything and not Spaghieri. Spaghieri just took credit for it.
Spaghieri was just more of a kind of like Walter Mitty, kind of Baron Munchausen making up stories.
Yes, and of those that were arrested, a lot of them are still pissed off at him because he never took part in the digging. So they were doing the hard work and he wasn't doing anything.
He was just the PR guy.
Essentially, yes. So they were digging in crap, in sewers and stuff. And
they were Andy Dufresne.
They worked for 3 months and he never did. So some members are still pissed off at him because of that. And even though he's given details of the operation, there are still very fuzzy areas in what he's given the cops and the press. So it is possible that, in fact, it's all bullshit. That, in fact, he wasn't the brain behind the operation, that he didn't organize it. All he did is have the idea, talk to someone, and that someone did everything.
It snowballed from there.
Yeah. So we don't know for sure.
Okay.
So maybe everything we said today isn't true, or maybe it's true, or we don't know. So one of the members also explained that he was paid half his fee, because otherwise he would have been paid more than the people who did the digging, and that didn't go down.
No.
So they decided to cut his fee in half.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we don't know.
Okay.
We don't know what really happened. There are lots of people saying various things. Lots of people who give very detailed accounts of what's happening, what happened in that case. We don't really know.
We don't really
And most
know.
of them are dead by now anyway, so we probably would never know.
But wait, coming to a cinema near you, Spaghieri's 15.
I'm surprised there hasn't been a film made. Yeah.